Well, I appreciate the fact that you also appreciate the fact that it is complicated, making it a little bit also complicated for political parties. How are they understanding this whole mix that is going to happen in the displaced persons camp? Because they will definitely scramble for votes from these people in such camps. Have you been able to speak to them? What kind of understanding do they have, to the extent that they will have their own party representatives, which we call party agents, that will come in that particular camp?
Well, you see, when we developed the methodology for IDP voting, we discussed it with the political parties. We have regular meetings with political parties. For over 2 years, we met with political parties quarterly. Every quarter, we have one meeting where chairmen and secretaries of political parties or their representatives attend. Since last September 2014, we've virtually been meeting every month, just to explain things and to get their own input and to address their concerns. So at one of the meetings, we discussed our methodology for IDP voting. We organized a national stakeholder meeting in Abuja, where we invited all the key stakeholders, including chairmen of political parties, where we presented that methodology and it was accepted. And then we mandated our resident electoral commissioners to take back this to stakeholder meetings in the states. And they did that. And that was where this variation came with regards to Borno state. So I think the key challenge for us, after all, in any election, every political party is entitled to accredited agents. In addition to accredited agents, there are all ranges of observers that are accredited. And then there are security personnel. And the key challenge in conducting elections in these areas with security challenges is effective collaboration and working relationship between our officers and the security agencies. I think the key issue, some of the concerns that have been raised, is about having a level playing field. Some people have expressed concerns that, for example, in some of the camps, the state governments are visible because they are giving a lot of support and provisioning for the members, and there is a worry that conducting elections inside the camps would mean that it will be an undue disadvantage for those. And we said that the way we create our voting environment is individuals who come and vote, who have a permanent voter's card that will be read by a card reader. The key issue is to ensure accessibility so that those IDPs outside of camp are allowed to come into the camps, so that nobody is stopped from coming into the camps to be able to vote. So once that is done, you create a level playing field, and then people choose whom they want to vote for.
Now, for those three local governments, if at the end of the day, security says, well, I'm sorry, we can't hold elections there, will the elections not holding there affect the outcome of the presidential elections?
Well, we hope it wouldn't. We can only hope it wouldn't, because as you know, in most of these local governments that are under the control of insurgents, they are deserted. Most people have moved out. And it's practically impossible under a war, a military operation, to go and conduct an election. So our hope is that the constituency elections in those places, since we will be doing IDP voting, we may be able to make returns. But nobody can say definitively that this will happen. It will be more difficult to make a return, whether for governorship or for senatorial or state assembly or even House of Reps elections, if no IDP voting provisions have been made. So with the provision for IDP voting, we believe that we have minimized the possibility of not being able to do a return.
About the card readers, I know the police have spoken up saying they will make sure that nobody tries anything, or even if you try, you won't succeed in snatching those card readers. And then you also said that you have backups if card readers don't work. What happens, hypothetically, if at the end of the day, maybe one of those card readers are snatched?
We've always had in our guidelines what happens if there is willful, deliberate disruption of an electoral process. You know that, for example, if a ballot box is snatched, we cancel the election in that place. But we have to work hard to make it difficult or impossible for people to snatch ballot boxes or to snatch ballot papers, or to even snatch smart card readers as we speak now. And we are reassured by the statements repeatedly made by security agencies that special attention will be paid to protecting not just personnel and materials, but especially the card reader itself. But in the unlikely event that deliberately some people go and snatch a card reader, we apply the rules as we've applied it in the case of snatching of ballot boxes.
So it's the same rule that will apply?
Absolutely.
What about those who say that there was no specific mention in the Act about card readers? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter, because there is nothing in the Electoral Act or in the Constitution that says we cannot use technology to improve accreditation.
I mean, the snatch those card readers, that there was no mention of maybe what happens if a card reader is snatched.
No, but also there is no mention as to what happens if a ballot box is snatched. Remember, there is a broad framework, legal framework, which are in the Constitution, then narrower in the Electoral Act, and then INEC also, within the context of what is in the Electoral Act, we can also further define through our regulations and guidelines and so on. So that's where these things are defined.
Well, tell us very clearly then, what obtains an effect that's an event that one is not able to use the card reader? For instance, the polling officials are not able to use the card readers for whatever reason.
Yes.
What happens then?
I'm very glad you raised this question, because there is a lot of misunderstanding about that. We reached agreements with political parties on two key important matters on the use of the card reader. And it's amazing, you know, because as far back as November last year, we came at one of these meetings with political parties and said, now that we are using card readers, there are issues we need to agree on the use of this card reader. The first one is that we anticipated that the card reader will not be able to read every fingerprint, you know, because of so many reasons, you know, and particularly our own peculiarities. Majority of the people are farmers or are artisans that use their hands, and the fingerprint would have faded, or women put henna on their hands, and that can prevent reading. So there are many reasons why, as good and as effective as a hand fingerprint scanner is, it may not be able to read a fingerprint. So we said, what happens if, one, the card is read? Because there are four things that the card reader does. One, it reads the card, and it ensures that only cards produced by INEC are read. So no clone card can be read by our card reader. Secondly, it verifies whose details are on the chip of the card. As you swipe the card reader, you've seen it here, the details come on the screen. And it's not reading the surface, it's reading a chip inside the card. So it verifies who brings the card. Then the third thing it does is what we call authentication. You can do authentication biometrically, you can do authentication physically or visually. But we said, let's use biometric authentication. So you check the fingerprint, and it cross-matches that fingerprint that is put on the scanner with the fingerprint stored in the chip.
Right. Yeah.
You know. So, but what happens if it can't read? Because of all these reasons I have mentioned, we agreed with political parties that once you are verified as the owner of the card. It can be seen. One, it has read the card. Two, all your details are there. People can physically, visually verify you
so
as the owner of the card.
Face.
It has
your
your
face. Will
face.
show.
Yes. If your fingerprint is not read, then we write an attestation form, what we call an incident reporting form. The presiding officer will do that. And then you will be accredited and you will be allowed to vote. And we have seen that the card reader actually reads, on average nationwide from the tests we've done, 60%. So we'll only be talking about maximum 40% of people whose fingerprints are not read. We've made provisions for that. We have sufficient incident reporting forms.
That is in one instance.
Yes.
In the instance I'm asking, I'm wondering what happens in the event that for whatever reason the card reader, we can't use it on that
Thank you. You know, I said, I said there are two things we agreed with political parties. The first one is about fingerprint authentication. The second thing is what happens if the card reader fails, does not function, or starts functioning and stops. We agreed with political parties, and we have put it into our guidelines. If a card reader fails, INEC must replace that card reader within the period of accreditation, which is between 8 and 1 p.m. If we replace within that period of accreditation, all we need to do is to adjust the time lost so that accreditation will be completed. If we cannot replace, then in that polling unit, elections have to be suspended to the following day, when a new card reader will be brought for elections to take place. This is a very, very highly unlikely possibility, because we ordered for 182,000 pieces of the card reader. We've tested all of them. The only dead on arrival, what they call dead on arrival, manufacturer's fault, we had only 403 out of this total number.
Were they replaced?
Yeah, they will be replaced. We've already told the company, and they are sending them, but they are part of the redundancies. We have over 30,000 spares, which we have already distributed in accordance with wards. In every ward, there will be spares of these card readers. So in the possibility, or very unlikely possibility of a card reader failing, we have enough to be able to replace within that window. But if in the extreme chance that we could not replace, then we agreed with political parties, we cannot continue with the election without a card reader. We have to come back the following day to do it. Ghana did it, and that's what people are saying. People are saying card reader failed in Ghana, card reader failed in Ghana. It's not true. What happened is that in Ghana, Electoral Commission and politicians agreed that if a card reader fails, you have to stop. No accreditation, no biometric accreditation, no election. So when the card reader failed, they had to come back the following day to do the election. And it happened in less than 10% of the total number of polling units in Ghana.